Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Together. My name is Antoinette, and I'm standing in Cortland Manor, north of New York City. And just a warm, warm welcome to all. I see many of us in Zoom are already putting in where we're coming from. You can put that in on YouTube as well, if you'd like. And just sharing our place is really helpful to help us land with each other, but also in our own space. Some of us have been moving around and going to different places, so it's fun to see where we all are as well. So welcome back for many of us who have been here week after week. It's been a couple of weeks, so welcome back. And if you're brand new, a warm welcome to you as well. It takes us a couple minutes to just land here, so thanks for bearing with us. We've got the West Village in New York City, Brooklyn. So we've got the boroughs representing here. Glen Ellen, Illinois, Hadley, Mass, Los Angeles, Arlington, Mass, Chicago, Richmond, Virginia. Susan from hot and sticky Toronto. It's been quite humid here as well. Bridgeport, Connecticut, Central MA, San Francisco. A warm, warm welcome as we land here, San Antonio, Texas. So we are really coming from all over. Oh, Petra is here from Germany. Good to see you again, and glad that you are here to just say hello. It's wonderful to be back and to be in this community that has been growing and connecting with each other over time. It's really a way for us to stay connected and land in ourselves, but also to connect with each other and to have both this inner connection and this outer connection, especially over the last few months and year and a half or so that we've been dealing with a fairly different reality. And for those of you who may remember, we used to do in-person events. And while some of us have been able to have small gatherings, these were quite large. And we were also connected through the internet, through the Zoom, prior to it being such a commonplace thing. And, over the last few months, we've really had this as our only source of connection and our only source of being able to see each other and feel each other in some way. So maybe to just, again, land here, you can look at the Zoom boxes if that's available to you and click on view if you're in Zoom and gallery. And you can just take 4 little boxes, just pick 4 little boxes. And if you can put your video on, that's great. And just find 4 little boxes that you can tune into a few of the boxes on your screen and just give them a loving hello, a welcome. I love it. And I love one of our teachers tells us to act as if our entire body has eyes and we're just seeing each other and holding space for one another. Just welcoming everyone in. Just witnessing who's here. And maybe just holding with compassion those 4 little boxes and know that someone's holding you as we do this. So we're just here together for this little hour. Wonderful. Thank you for taking the moment to do that. And the hellos. Beautiful. So today, our topic is on practicing patience, which many of us have a great deal of experience with for a number of different reasons. But what I'd like to do before we jump into the topic at hand is to just do a little moment of stillness. We like to do tiny practices, in part because we only have an hour together, but it's also just our way of staying connected and grounded. When we used to do these in-person events or have a day-long retreat or many days-long retreat, we would maybe feel really great after that, full day of being out of, our current reality and just kind of being with each other. And this was a tiny practice, is just a way to tune back in for a moment. It doesn't need to be a full day event. It doesn't need to be totally escaping or distracted. It's actually coming back and just getting present just for a moment and being here in this body and all of the resources that are available to us with the breath and our being. So just landing here in your space. I am looking for and unsuccessfully, I think someone took my chime, my little bowl. You all know how important that little bowl is. Well, I think someone in the house removed it. So that's the joy of working from home. What we'll do is just find a moment of stillness together. So we normally have a little bell to mark the beginning and the end of our moment of stillness. For today, that will be my voice. And we'll just tune into the breath together. So if you can get both feet flat on the ground, just feel the energy of being connected to earth. If you'd like to lower your gaze or close your eyes, just feel the breath moving in and out of the body. Just noticing the space around the heart. And if there's any feeling or sensation there, just being with that. And feeling into the top of the head, that space just above the crown of the head, where we're connected to sky. Just being reminded for a moment that as we're here, connected to earth and connected to sky, breathing in and out, the core nature of being human. Just holding that for a few moments. And if your attention wandered off, just bringing it back to the breath, thinking of something that makes you smile. And then you can open your eyes and return back to our little community here and to our screens. Wonderful. Thank you all for taking that moment of stillness. Just being in the body can be so helpful, such an incredible tool we have. So just noticing anything that may have been coming up for you, but anything that may have brought you here today. And today's topic is practicing patience. So patience is a practice, and we will talk a little bit about that. We'll do a little bit of discussion, and then we'll move into our small groups. And we'll do some reflection before that too, where we can chat about it with each other. But what brought you here today? And maybe just going beyond the surface level thing that could come up with what brought you here today, and just think, well, what really brought me here today? And then you can type that into the chat or into the comment section in YouTube, and I will read a couple of them out, or a few of them. Jen says, I'm not feeling patient at all with myself or with life. Kathleen says, fascinating to contemplate practicing patience as opposed to being patient. Absolutely. Linda, community. Carly, running out of patience. Jen said, so this seemed well timed as a follow up. Yeah. Jerry, need to breathe. Gathering among women, an hour to grow. Need to learn to be more patient. Regrounding and refreshing in community. I have stuff I need to be patient with, and I'm terrible at it. Thanks, Linda. To feel less stress in my life by being patient. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones in here. So I'm just, they're all coming in all at the same time. I need to work on patience generally, but I'm also training a new puppy who thinks I'm a chew toy. Definitely takes a lot of patience to work with a puppy. Yeah. Wow. There's a lot going on. So, just holding all of the different pieces. We have a vaccination nurse in the room. So, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Um, yeah, Suzanne, having a teenager in the house can be very interruptive. She has to leave early to play taxi. Well, we send you a lot of patience. So there's some really great things that we're holding and some tough things that we're holding. Just noting on YouTube, need to practice being more present, which means patience to me. Yeah. Yeah, so I have some thoughts to share just a little bit on when I was thinking about, what when we're holding actually one of our team members, Ella, came up with this topic idea, and it was immediate that I felt, oh, yeah, practicing patience. We're doing a lot of that. We need a lot of it. And what does it mean? And I think this question about being patient versus practicing patience is a fascinating idea, because in different scenarios we can be patient for different things. When I know that I'm waiting for something and I'm going to get something that I'm really looking forward to, then I feel like I can be really patient because I know that there's an end to it. I know that it's, something's going to shift, or I'm going to have the thing that I'm waiting for. And I think having patience or practicing patience is a bit different than waiting. You can be patient while waiting, but there's just a little subtle difference there. And and then there are different scenarios where, it really tries our patience. And I think we'll focus a little bit on that and what we can do to practice patience in those areas. And also just noticing, as many of us have already said, that patience is something that we can practice and we have to practice in order to get better at it, because there might be some areas where we are really good at it, and then some areas where we need a little more practice. So let's consider patience a muscle. Just like compassion, I don't have data to say that compassion, there's data that proves that you can increase that area in your brain that holds compassion when you practice it. So maybe having more compassion allows us to be more patient with each other, perhaps. But I don't have exact data about patience being a muscle, but we'll call it that for today. And I was reading a little bit about patience because I've been curious, and I really appreciated the work of Sarah Schnitker, who's she's a professor at Baylor University in psychology and neuroscience. And she said there are three main areas that we need patience. So the first one that I'll talk about is life hardships. So that's, for example, facing an illness, a chronic illness, disability, something that you have to kind of deal with over the long term. So life hardships, something that you have to face over the long term. And then interpersonal interactions. These are the ones that I focus on more personally, but this is kind of a conflict or struggle with a spouse, friend, child, parent. Could be at work, any interpersonal interaction where something happens and you have to deal with that person. And then daily hassles. So she says traffic jams, flight delays, spills, tangled necklaces, getting transferred a dozen times before you can talk to the person to figure out why your internet isn't working, those kinds of things. So I loved that. I loved those three different ways of thinking about it, because it's also a reminder that I might be really good at dealing with the interpersonal relationships. Um, I might be really good with certain interpersonal relationships. I might be I've cultivated patience for dealing with my partner. I know how to do that part. And yet there might be a friend who I really struggle with being patient with, or I get triggered by. It reminds me of something that I've dealt with before. Or I might be really great at untangling a necklace and be really patient with figuring that out, but have zero patience for interpersonal relationships. Same goes for lifelong hardships, or just life hardships in general. So I thought that was really useful to be reminded that I like to kind of think of myself as a patient person. I'm either patient or I'm not. And that patience is something that we can actually practice and we can get better at and we can cultivate in ourselves. And when we know how to do it in one area, we might be able to actually apply that to other areas. So if I know how to do that untangling the necklace thing, then I might be able to apply that with the friend that I'm really struggling with. So I also loved Carrie's description in the chat. She said, patience is grace in flow. And I think that that's really a beautiful way of putting it, because there's that moment where something happens, something comes up. And I love how when I do these things, something happens that just reminds me of exactly the topic that we're working on today. And, looking for my little bell, looking for the little bowl, and I'm looking for it. I'm looking around and I can choose to get really, flustered and hold on a second, everybody, and, kind of, or get, mad at somebody or, whatever. Or I can show up in a way that is, I'm really good at untangling the necklace. I'm going to find another way to do this. And, and then there's also the flip side about it. We've talked about apathy in this, in this conversation before, or in this space before. Sylvia just sent me a message. The dog has buried it, and I'm going to have a chat with Simba wherever he is. But the thing that we've talked about before is we've talked about the kind of spectrum of apathy and sympathy and, caring, empathy, and compassion. And I find that this is also true with patience. So the other side of patience could be that you get passive. And for me, sometimes I'm trying so hard to be patient that I soften back from any real capacity to care at all, because I'm just trying not to get frustrated or upset or overreact to the situation at hand. So I just caution myself and I caution us about that, because when we think about that patience spectrum, if I'm being super patient and I lose my boundaries with it and I kind of just let myself become a doormat, then there are repercussions to that too. We might be shoving things down and pushing the emotions away. So being clear about what's really important to us, I think, is really crucial. And also finding a way to practice patience, to just be balanced about it, when it's not necessary to react in a way that might not be useful to the situation at hand. So those are just my little thoughts about patience for today. And I thought we could do a tiny practice, or maybe a little longer practice than the one earlier, about getting in tune with our own reactions and interactions and our own ability to practice patience and compassion. Before we do that, just one last thing that I wanted to mention is that what are the useful tools that we can use to practice patience. And I think some of those I've already mentioned. Compassion can be really useful. So if it's an interpersonal relationship, or even if it's a life hardship, if there's an illness, then it might be just a little pause and a reminder of, how can I have compassion in this moment? What might that person be going through? Or if I'm having compassion for myself, that might again be helpful, because I can actually turn inwards for a moment and have, compassion that if I'm dealing with a life hardship right now, I might not be able to, like, if, for example, when I've sprained an ankle before, it's okay that I'm not as functional as I normally am, because I'm dealing with this situation right now, and having compassion for ourselves. So that's one area, one way to kind of reframe. And the other is around acceptance and tolerance. And those ones for me take a little longer sometimes. Depends on what it is, but acceptance and tolerance, cultivating those aspects of ourselves, can help us to cultivate patience, which might be practicing openness, practicing just being in stillness and just seeing what's coming up. Um, for me, it's easier if I tell myself a little bit more of a story. Like, they must be going through something. Like, if I'm at the store and there's something happening, I'm like, why isn't why isn't this line moving or whatever? There must be something happening down there, um, so just noticing how we can reframe in the moment, how we can shift our perspective, how we can hold a larger perspective, maybe take in additional data of the situation that we might not have been considering at the moment. So Francis just said stillness. It might allow you to develop another skill. I fully agree. And what I'd like to do is invite us into another moment of stillness, but I'll do a little bit more of a guided meditation. So you might want to keep a pen and paper, pencil and paper nearby, so that you can journal if you'd like to afterwards, or perhaps journaling is what you need right now, and you can just go ahead and do that. But for now, we'll just land again back in the body. Sometimes in listening to other people, or in, my thoughts start going, my brain is, just, there's so much happening. So what I'd like to do is just come back to the self and see what's coming up for you here about patience. And just maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze. I like to lower my gaze because it keeps me still connected with the world. But whatever is right for you today, just tuning into the breath. And just noticing what may be coming up for you in relation to this conversation, to this piece around practicing patience. And just noticing for yourself if there's something activated or calm. Just noticing what's happening inside. And getting more attuned to the inner space. And as you do that, perhaps call to mind a time where you have been impatient. And it could be a time that already passed. It doesn't need to be the one right now. I'm impatient with my life as a whole, just something kind of in the middle there, of a time that you experienced a moment of being impatient with something. Maybe it was a person, maybe it was a tangled necklace. Just noticing what feelings come up when you put yourself back in that moment. Maybe frustration, overwhelm, just what feelings, maybe anger. Just being with the sensation of that feeling, which could be quite uncomfortable. So just being with that, that's okay. And then noticing how you reacted in that scenario. So it might be that you cultivated patience, you had it, and you were able to work through it. It might be that you had the tangled necklace and you threw it on the ground, really unhappy about it. So, whatever it is, perhaps just noticing both how you felt and how you actually reacted in that moment. And either anything that happened is okay, but just being with both of those things. And then for a moment, just if you could zoom out of the situation, still seeing that situation, but if you could zoom out for a moment and just see more of the whole, is there any information that you might be missing? If you took a kind of larger view, as if you were in a helicopter and kind of looking down at that situation, just noticing, is there any more information that you can take in? And from this place, do you have any advice for yourself? And not advice that's kind of like you should have done that or you should do this. That's not the advice I'm talking about. It's more just being with that. Is there it maybe if you think about it as a kind of mantra that you could say to yourself, that this person, when you look at that person in that scenario, dealing with that situation, is there anything you could tell her or that she needs to remember in that moment? Just being with those words. If there's anything that came up. And then just for a moment, we'll do one hand on the chest and one hand on the belly, maybe just below the belly button. And just breathing into the body, filling the belly, filling the chest and the collarbones. Noticing the resources that we have right here in the body. And just noticing if you can find a place of acceptance, tolerance, or compassion, just somewhere in the body, just noticing. Perhaps it's having compassion for that version of yourself who was in that situation and dealing with their own ability or inability to be patient or to have patience. Just following the breath in and out. When you're ready, you can release your hands. And if you'd like to jot anything down in your journal, you can do that. I will share the little questions that I brought up in that visualization practice. And just for you to notice where you are on the practicing patience spectrum. And where is it that it's difficult or it's easy to be patient for you? Mary shared that her necklace was tangled this morning. Her first thought was to toss it and wear something else, but then thought, really, I do have time to deal with it now. So why not take a little time and relax in the task? So thank you for sharing that, Mary, and to the others who shared as well. We will move into breakouts and to connecting with each other there if you're in Zoom. And the reminder here is that we all are dealing with different versions of our capacity to be patient or to have patience or to practice patience. And that this opportunity is to practice patience with each other. And maybe you have a lot to say and you want to go in and share it. And maybe you don't have that much to say, but either way, opening up a space for acceptance and really deep listening. We talk a lot about generative listening. I say every week that we don't know what the other person across from us had for breakfast, let alone what their life journeys have been or how they've been cultivating a practice of patience. So I invite you to just hold space for each other. And we'll give you a good 20 minutes to connect. So please enjoy your time together. And we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. And for those of you on YouTube,